Friends, I wanted to pop out here to our back porch to record this, which means I'm going to be sitting here rather casually on our deck, not in my normal Sunday wear, but this, of course, is not Sunday, and these are not normal times. In fact, it's actually Wednesday as I'm recording this, April 22nd, the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and it's a rather beautiful, sunny, and 65 right now. And it's hard to look into the camera at this moment and reflect on the difficult realities of us together navigating a massive global problem. It's hard because it's also frustrating that this is a problem that we have been navigating for quite some time now, and one that many of us are beginning to feel a lot of fatigue about, even though experts have long been warning us that if we don't get our act together, the crisis will only be greater. The longer we wait, the longer we postpone action, the more difficult it will be to flatten the curve of this great challenge. And now, up until now, you may be thinking that I am talking about the coronavirus pandemic, or maybe you're thinking that I'm talking about climate change. In fact, I am aiming to talk to both because there are a lot of parallels here. Things we should be watching, learning from, and paying attention to as our global community responds to the coronavirus crisis. We have seen clearly that our nation and many places around our world were not prepared for this issue, even though there are stories of scientists and health experts who have been out there warning us that we are not prepared for a highly infectious viral disease like this. And because we are not prepared, we are now woefully behind on testing and treatment, and it is having a far greater impact on the health and well-being of our societies. We are seeing more people die, and yes, we are seeing the economy take an even bigger hit than we would be if we were prepared. That is true of the coronavirus, and it is also true of climate change. So as we find ourselves inundated with all the news and the challenging hurdles that we are working through, all the what ifs and why didn't we prepare earlier type of questions, let us take these difficult challenges that are at hand and use them as a parallel learning tool to how we think about responding to climate change. The longer that we wait to flatten the curve on our consumption and our fossil fuel usage and the rising global temperatures in our world, the harder it will be to respond to the crisis that inevitably follows. It's funny how both with the pandemic and I believe with climate change, that the most extreme measures we could think about taking, things that would seem completely over the top, often look woefully inadequate in hindsight. Who could have imagined a few mere months ago that we as a global society would come to a near stop in order to respond to a crisis at hand? This is an unimaginable experiment for all of us, for our global society, for our global economies, for our global rhythms and methods of work. This is, in a way, the type of experiment that climate change experts could never dream about. All of the slowing down, the stopping, the easing of pollution and travel. We could never convince ourselves to replicate this unless we are facing a full-on disaster like a global pandemic. And here we are, navigating it together. if we could go back in time a few months earlier from now, we would do things differently. We would wish that we had acted earlier. That will similarly be the case with climate change if we can't find a way to respond as a community. Now, it is taking a ton of work for all of us just to survive and maintain our own wellness and well-being through this time. But let us remember to be observant, to listen, to learn from this great experiment so that we can be ready to respond as a society to a big existential threat that is around us in the global climate change crisis. Now, I'm going to talk about this as a problem just a little longer before I make a pivot to an opportunity, because I want to acknowledge this big thorny hunk of buckthorn that has been residing beside me this whole time. As many of you know, Laura and I just moved to a new home, and as winter is giving way to spring, we have the opportunity to take stock of our yard and the land that we're on. And as I've looked closer, I noticed that this nice natural looking hedge that separates our property from our neighbors on one side it's really a hedge that is full of buckthorn, this invasive, thorny, difficult tree-like shrub that is covering the entire side of our yard. The side of the yard where I am hoping to put in a native perennial rain garden. The longer that I wait to take care of this buckthorn issue, the more of an issue it will become. And if you need any evidence of that, just take a stroll around the St. Luke property sometime. As many of you know, the woods back there are crowded with buckthorn, and it's a real thorny, pokey, difficult chore of a pruning adventure to solve. So I've got a real problem on my hands when I look out my window into my side yard and think about, what am I going to do here? That problem is real. Just like the problem that we are navigating with this pandemic and climate change, those are real problems. And when I look out my window, I do not want to deal with it, even though I know I have to. So what is helping me is making this shift. Because just as important as it is for us to pay attention to the problems and the learning curves that we need to navigate, it is also just as important for us to pay attention to the great, big, beautiful invitations that are awaiting us on the other side of those problems. And so that's why I've got this right here, my newly ordered and delivered service berry shrub, one of several that I will be putting in place of these buckthorn branches. And now that they are here, I've got a beautiful reminder of what it is that I am hoping for, what it is that I am working for. You see, every fossil fuel addiction that we need to break, every buckthorn that we need to remove, they come with the chance to do something in its place. Like a bike ride instead of a traffic-heavy car commute, or the journey of a great book in place of a flight overseas, or the planting of a rain garden in place of a big stretch of buckthorn. Now, this small service berry bush, it is native to Minnesota, and in the spring, it will come alive with beautiful little white flowers. In the summer, there will be big bluish purple edible berries for us. In the fall, there will be dramatic auburn color leaves, and in the winter, we're going to have beautiful silky smooth silver bark to give us a shot of beauty even in the winter. That, in my books, counts as 4 seasons of blessings coming from this one plant, and that is enough for me to get my loppers and get outside here every morning or every evening or every nap time and do a little more work to try to take care of this buckthorn issue. Again, the longer I wait, the more difficult this will be. I wish someone had cleared this buckthorn 10 years ago. The next best thing is to do it now. It's really just a matter of perspective. Which brings me to our Genesis passage here as I wrap up this message. The scripture that we read this morning, it is the reading that you would find in the NRSV Bible if you open it up right now. And it describes humankind being made in the very good image of God. And it describes us as human beings as having dominion over the earth and charging us to go forth and subdue the earth. That is the translation that we have in our Bible. But many biblical scholars suggest that a more faithful translation, or at least an equally faithful translation, would be, in place of the word dominion and subdue, to use the word steward and stewardship. We are called to be stewards of God's good creation and to practice stewardship over this great abundance around us, to care for it lovingly, to tend to it. The reason that we have dominion and subdue or master or rule or dominate, depending on the translation that you have, this is not a fact. These words occur once in the Hebrew Bible, and it is up to us to interpret the exact shade of meaning. It's our own lens that brings the connotation of domination and subduing, because that is the way that we have traditionally understood our relationship to the earth. We are here to subdue it, to tame it, to force it to act a certain way. It is equally faithful to say that we are here to be stewards of this interconnected creation that we are a part of. And as we witness the coronavirus pandemic and the climate change crisis, I am reminded that we are all more connected than we ever may realize to the earth and to one another. And if we do look around us and see this as God's good creation, or as this beautiful, blessed web of interconnected life that we are all a part of, then surely our role here is to be good, loving caretakers. Now, in a way, as I get ready to head back out there with my loppers, I am getting ready to do a bit of domination myself as I work to remove this problematic non-native species from our surroundings. But that is a choice that is done in an intentional effort to cultivate and return to a natural, native, healthy environment that will bless our family with beauty and the wildlife that lives and wings and crawls around our property with a safe and healthy place to live and nest. We are doing this for the care of all creation. And the sooner we do it, the better off we all will be. So as we continue to navigate our way through this pandemic, as we listen and learn and think about the climate change crisis, may we remember that sometimes what is needed is a simple shift in perspective, so that we think less about the thorny problem at hand, which just stabbed and probably cut my hand, by the way, and think more about the beautiful blessings that can come when we all work together, when we practice good acts of loving service and care for the earth, for one another, and for all created life. So this Earth Day, this 50th Earth Day, may we hear and remember our call to be good stewards. Now, I'm going to go out in that sunshine and do my part. I hope you will as well.